So let's talk about limits and boundaries. Connection is obviously the first pillar in your relationship with your preteen and teen. But in order to be able to have a really healthy, balanced relationship, we need to have that other pillar, which is limits and boundaries. In this section, we're going to explore why boundaries matter, how to set effective boundaries and handle pushback, how to make boundaries stick, and what to do when things get emotional. It's my hope by the end of this section, you're going to have a lot of ideas to try at home. One day I was driving in my car with my 14-year-old and she said to me, "Mum, I know that I hated the rules when I was 10, but I'm really glad that you did that now." And in that moment, I had a flashback to all the tears, all the pushback, the challenges that we've had together along the way, and it made it all worth it hearing her say that. We still have a long way to go, but it reminded me again of why we are doing this, of why limits are important alongside love. Have you ever driven through a busy intersection where the traffic lights have stopped working? It's chaos, right? Like no one knows exactly who's giving way to who. When the lights are functioning, everyone knows what to do, so there's no problem. Boundaries for kids work the same way. First of all, they make kids feel safe because there are clear expectations. They reduce chaos and generally help family life flow more smoothly. Having limits and rules also helps reduce the pressure that they have to decide every single day. So when limits are loose or constantly negotiable, the burden falls on our kids to constantly decide if they're going to have 5 more minutes or if they should stop or if they should keep going. So that's exhausting for a developing brain, especially after a really long day of school or activities. Clear, consistent rules take away that mental load for our kids. So if your child knows that they have to do their homework and help at home and do their chores before seeing their 30-minute show, and it's enforced every single day, they don't need to invest time in deciding whether they're going to do that or not. They just get on with it. So obviously, as our kids grow, they're going to need to take on more of that responsibility of thinking for themselves and planning things and following through. Definitely a good self-regulation skill. But for now, a lot of these rules and limits help create a scaffolding in getting that regulation muscle happening. The healthiest boundaries and limits are the ones that slowly change with our kids as their skills and their knowledge and their capacities evolve, as opposed to major shifts happening overnight, which is generally what happens when kids are gifted phones with social media on them. One morning they wake up without it, and the next they have unlimited access to everything. So we want to be able to gradually change those boundaries and limits as our kids grow up. And when they understand that, it's anchored on their skills and capacities, then it's easier for them to understand why they're valuable. So we've touched on why boundaries matter. Now we're going to focus on how to actually set them. I want to help you figure out what your boundaries are and how to decide which ones are firm and which ones have some flexibility. Every family needs a mix of both negotiable and non-negotiable boundaries. Non-negotiable boundaries are the rules that stay consistent no matter what. These are your anchors, the boundaries that keep your child's well-being protected. Negotiables are the ones that you have room to adapt or compromise with your kids. So having both is important because if every rule was up for debate, your child might feel like the ground is always shifting. If nothing is negotiable, they can feel really controlled or powerless. The right balance creates a structure that's fair, but still gives you the authority to be able to protect what matters most. So if you ask my kids, what are non-negotiables in your house? They're likely to say, no phones at the dinner table, no phones in bedrooms or bathrooms, and you have to charge your device in the living room when you go to bed. These are the rules that have been in our house for years and years, and they're kind of etched into my kids' brains. So we don't argue about them anymore. They just know it. And often they actually call us out. If anyone brings a phone to the dinner table, it just feels very weird for us all. Other examples of non-negotiables may be no app downloads without parental approval, or passwords have to be shared and they can't be changed, or no spontaneous tech decisions. So if you want a new app, you just need to make a request at the family meeting every month. Pause this now and spend 10 minutes looking over the non-negotiable recommended list. What would you put on there? What would you add, and what have you got now on your non-negotiables? And remember, fewer, clearer rules are easier to follow than a long, overwhelming list for our kids. We want them to be able to say, these are our top rules at home and this is why. Okay, welcome back. Negotiables are the rules where you give your child some input into the rule. And this can vary with every family, but it might be them helping decide what their exact bedtime is, or them deciding when they spend their screen time during the day or the weekend, or what their password is within limits, because passwords need to be robust, obviously, or them deciding what their chores are. The Australian eSafety Commissioner found that children respond far better to rules that they've had a hand in creating, especially when they see those rules as fair and consistent. So involving them in the process is really, really encouraged because it gives them ownership and makes them feel the limit is easier to accept. Okay, so now I want you to take some time to reflect on what would be your list of negotiables? What would be the things that aren't set completely in stone and that you'll be willing to discuss with your kids and hear their thoughts on it and decide together? The healthiest boundaries we can set aren't just random rules, they're connected to what's important to your family. When kids understand why a rule exists and why it's important to our family, it stops it feeling like it's kind of an arbitrary rule that we've just pulled out of the air. And it helps them understand that it's connected to something bigger. So, what does that look like in practice? Well, here's an example. Let's say your family values having calm and harmony. Then pointing out to your kids, we've been fighting a lot lately and it hasn't felt good. And I know that you really want to be able to have more calm and you want to do things together and enjoy being with each other. And I want that too. So these rules are going to help us do that. This quote by Daniel Barkay from the Centre of Humane Technology really is such a good reminder because if we haven't defined our values as a family, we're just going to be taken wherever the tech industry is deciding to take us. So, if you have a couple of minutes now, you can just jot down what you think are the top values for your family. In Module 6, we're going to explore this in more depth when you create your family tech plan. So, you'll get a chance to talk to your kids a little bit about the kinds of things that as a family define you and the things that you love the most and really protect and cherish. Now, chances are you have heard George Farwell say, "Why can't I get it? Because everyone else has one." It's a phrase we've all heard and may hear a lot during these years. Despite the fact that it's usually not 100% true that every single other person in their entire school has one, it's in these exact moments that we usually cave in the most, especially when they're looking at us with those puppy eyes. But let's talk now about this conversation and let's explore a few things that we can say in response. Now, let's think about the problem that our child is presenting to us right now. Thanks to tech marketing, cultural shifts, and social pressures, our preteen feels that they need to have whatever it is that they're asking for. Let's just say a phone. And we may feel pressure for the same reasons to meet that need. What we have here is a we problem. Yet all too often we feel like it's our preteen versus us. It's a kind of battle between us. In the following examples, I'm going to give you some thoughts on how we can lean into this idea of communicating that it's actually a shared problem that as a family, we're going to work through together. So first things first, we want to always start with empathy. Remember, it's us against the problem and our child's feelings in this are really, really valid. So let them know that you've heard them and that you understand that it's really hard to be left out and to not follow the path that everyone else is taking. Some words around this could be, I know it feels really hard to be left out when your friends have something you don't. I hear you and I really get it. You're not agreeing to change the rule. You're simply showing them that you understand their feelings. And sometimes just sitting with them with this sense of understanding alone can diffuse some of the tension. So next we can remind them of our protective role. For me, I've used these exact words with my kids before. I say, as a parent, it's my job to protect you from these things that can be harmful to you and to make sure your brain is ready for these experiences. It's my job to keep you safe and healthy. This shifts the focus from you being the mean parent to you being the responsible parent. Even though they may not feel it in the moment that they're really upset, it reminds them of what you're trying to do here. Next, we want to remind them about what we know about the topic. So in the case of social media and phones, this is where we reference research and information, or the things that we've read and the things that we've learned, not to lecture, but to help them understand the depth of your decision and the fact that it isn't random. Your kids are going to learn more in this course, especially around phone design, so that will help you lean into this explanation. And really, the power of this course is that other kids are learning alongside them and will be talking about it as well. Finally, when we are in these conversations with our kids pushing back, it's really important to end with hope and connection. So we don't want to change the rule, but we want them to understand that this is not forever. So you could say something like, I'm open to talking more about it. There's going to be a time for us to be able to do that. And there is going to be more experiences that you're going to have down the track. Promise you that. This really gives them a reassurance that no, not right now doesn't mean never. Pushback is obviously part of parenting and part of this journey, but what really makes the difference to our kids as to whether they accept a rule long term and how they feel about it is how we respond to these moments. It's like another marble going into that jar. So we can set boundaries and we can communicate them to our kids. But the truth is, even the best plans can fall apart if the environment is working against you. So in this section, we're going to talk about how to make the healthy choice the easy choice for you and your child. So here's a question. What would my tween or teen think if they saw me doing this? Perhaps you're thinking, who cares? I'm the adult. I can do whatever I want on my phone, which is true. But it actually matters because it's likely that they'll always default to thinking that you're on socials every time you pick up your phone. In this case, the classic scroll action gives it away. I am on socials, but in many cases, we're making an appointment, we're checking work emails or planning dinner, and the aggregate of all of those things means that we could be on our phone a lot more than just checking socials. And this is an important thing for us to be able to really clarify with our kids so that they understand that we're not on our phone 7 hours a day just doing that. So a popular technique and something that I love using all the time is narrating tech. So for example, if I'm about to go somewhere, I'll say out loud, I'm just checking Google Maps to see how long it takes. Or I might say, I'm just going to put this in the calendar so I don't forget. When I do get on socials and I'm kind of sitting there for too long, I might say out loud, oh, I just got sucked into social media for 30 minutes, going to take a break. And so this models, first of all, self-awareness, and it also shows them that devices are tools. You can use them for many different projects, and it helps them understand how you manage those tricky moments as well. Okay, so if you have time, just stop for a second and think about your own tech use, and if there's anything that you would like to change, you can jot it down. In Module 4, you're going to get a chance to sit with your kids and you're all going to reflect on your tech use together as a family. So everyone's going to fill out a quiz and they're going to have a think about what you are enjoying and what you want to change. Now, hard truth is that sometimes limits aren't working because our kids are in a dopamine cycle, and sometimes we are in a dopamine cycle. And the only thing that's going to help us reset as a family is a digital detox. One family in the Phone Savvy program from last year implemented this, and she's going to share her story later on in the community. But basically, they switched off for several days. Everyone put their phones away. The parents even told their work that they were going to be offline. And they say that it was one of the best things that they've ever done. The kids were calmer and they made some major family changes and decisions during that weekend. So sometimes it's painful, but as a family doing it together, you can reset your dopamine system, and the kids are more receptive to being able to put those phones or those devices down after that.